Once you get above 5 to 7 staff members, you will have to start inspiring growth and culture in your company. That all relates to getting a system in place that you can actually reward your staff members based on their production and not just on merit of, for example, pitching up at work. That is not going to help me much just because a staff member is there for 40 hours a week. So in this presentation, I want to show you how I visualize production, how I put it on a graph, and how I measure it in a very, very, very simple way so that your staff members can take over from you and actually produce and grow your entire company, and that becomes your culture. So let's start. First and foremost, you have to understand this. Your company is a conveyor belt that flows all the way down from one division into the next, and then it comes back to the top. So first we have PR that flows into sales, into finance, into production, into qualifications or quality control, into management, into HR. Now, here's the major misunderstanding people have. They only measure their product that they put out. So for example, if you're building tables, they tend to only measure how many tables that they produce. Now, this is not quite exactly what a company does. Your major product is divided into a bunch of sub-products. And that's what we want to measure. So each division has a sub-product, a responsibility that they are responsible for, that if I add all these together, I get to the valuable product at the end. So in PR, for example, first I need to attract leads. So my sub-product here would be leads. So depending on the company, let's say I measure 5 leads for the week. That would be a sub-product of PR. Sales is also very easy to manage. How many sales have I done? How much value has this brought to my company? Now it gets a little bit more tricky at the end of this. But what does finance measure? Finance has to measure that these quotes and deals we are doing on this side is actually profitable before we hand it over to production to start doing the work, because maybe this deal isn't going to be productive in terms of profit. It's only going to keep us busy. So finance has to check that for us. They have to be the checks and balances for the production. Then production can measure units of production, meaning we have produced X amounts of job cards this week, or we have produced so many units of production this week. Again, it is absolutely not hours worked. It is units of production produced. So one person sitting in the company for 40 hours versus another person sitting there also for 40 hours can be two totally different results in terms of how much they've contributed to the end goal of the entire organization. So too do we have quality control. How many units of our production has been inspected and approved that it's a good quality? Then we have management. They too have stats, by the way. How many, for example, SOPs did they write this week? How many strategic implementations have they done this week? How many maybe meetings that they have with each other to get this thing done? Now remember, again, meetings is the same as hours. I can have 100 meetings and get nothing done. So there has to be an end goal that's connected to the production. And then finally, HR. We can measure stuff in HR like how many training sessions have they done, how many staff members have they educated on how this whole system works. This all together, each one of these sub-products will result in my end product that I can sell, whether it's a service or a product. Now, this is what I'm trying to measure. Now, how I do it is very simple. As you can see, it's just a simple, singular A4 piece of paper. And as I'm going through the week, I've got Thursday where I start my week all the way to Wednesday, and I do it per week. And I'll just write up here the week ending. And then I give myself points. This is the big breakthrough. Instead of measuring hours, I'm saying, in my case, for this specific job, I say number of units of communication sent out. So for example, social media posts, campaigns, emails, this. So if I've sent 3 on Thursday, that would be 3 points, and I get 1 point per one of these units. Then sales meetings. Obviously that takes a little bit more time than just doing a simple social media post. So a sales meeting would be worth 5 points. And so too an actual sale is worth 10 points. Then I just put down how many units I've done, and I add all of this to give myself a total for the week. In this case, 44. Now, on top of that, I want to coordinate my staff with a weekly battle plan that matches the bigger strategic goals of the management inside my organization. Now, the second and most critical part to this is that this thing has to be put into a graph, because if I don't have a graph, I can't actually do anything with my staff. I can't visualize the production. So here you can see this person started below the viability, because in a company I can calculate if we don't do, for example, 50 new leads per week, we won't be a viable company anymore. So this is my viability I'm trying to measure. So you can see this person started, and at the start of their career at this company, they weren't even productive, meaning they didn't create enough resources to even pay their salary. But then we trained them, we educated them, and you can see they improved and improved to this point where now they're profitable because they're up here. And then in the same thing, just because I have this graph, I can now see that, but something happened over here because they went very much down. So then I'll do an investigation to ask this guy, what happened over here? Did you switch your medications? Did you get sick? Did you divorce? What's happening here? Because you always produced up here and now you're not even viable anymore. Then that gives me as a manager a way to handle this person before he gets into trouble. Because simply going to CCMA and doing warnings, this doesn't help people at all. Paying them more money usually also doesn't help them. But I have to, if someone is up here, pay them more money, because we can clearly see that they are a high producing member of the team. Now, these two documents, which is actually one document, I simply just give my staff and say, you must do this. You must come to the group and you must present this in a weekly battle planning session that we do for an hour or two. And they can be proud of this, and the other team members can also be proud of them. And if you do this correctly, you will even get into a situation where when you do your weekly battle planning meeting, that the group will start correcting themselves. So if someone is down here, other members in your group will say, hey, let me help you get back up here. This is how I did it, before you even have to intervene. Now, if you get all of this correct, you will have an inspiring growth and culture. This is really what culture means, and this is really what it means to have a company that can grow and scale itself. If you don't have this kind of stuff in your company, you will always struggle. If this has been helpful to you, please leave a comment down below and tell me what you thought of this video. Cheers for now.